This is Between Hook Sets. I'm Jason Walter from In Through the Outdoors with my partner in slime, Kurt Underhill from the Fishing Crew.
You are a knothead.
Yeah, well, you know, for Pete's sake, I got to take my VRs off because I can't see through them. The batteries are starting to die. I'm like, well, all right, if everybody's going VR, AR, doing whatever, I'll podcast that way. That's not a problem, you know? I'm like, well, all right. But here again, I can't even do that without messing it up. So I was in it earlier. I shut all of the noise down, thought I had everything taken care of, and I didn't. So here we go.
That'll happen.
Wow. Yeah, I got my kids AR or VR or whatever, and I tried to hook them to my phone so that I could do the different apps and things, the lake apps, and it's not a Bluetooth headset. It only works with Facebook and that Meta Quest deal or whatever. So whatever.
We don't need to go there, bud. We don't need to go to VR glasses for fishing yet.
No, I just wanted to do it for fun. I'm like, well, I'm just going to play, just because I can play. And then they were sitting on the kitchen table this evening, and I thought, I wonder if I could throw those on and start the podcast with it. And well, I did, but here again, live stuff, go ahead and mess it on up, So anyway, I think we've got a fun night planned here. Tom Sieburg, I told Tom, I said, I'm sorry, I've got my head up my butt. I keep thinking about the classic. I got to get away from it. I thought that Tom would be perfect to have on just before the South Dakota run for the MWC, so the Masters Walleye Circuit in Chamberlain. I thought that would be perfect. April 26, 27, we'll have him on. And I'm like, wait a minute, he's going to be too busy. How dumb. We need to have him on Wednesday night. And so luckily enough, he agreed and is on the show tonight.
Yeah. Oh, the lights are good. How's it going, Tom?
Oh, pretty good. How about you guys?
Wonderful.
Good.
Wonderful.
So for those who don't know, Tom is the reigning and defending World Walleye Champion out of Pierce, South Dakota.
Yep.
And how many sandbars did you hit?
Honestly, we did good. We only had one close call. That was it. We were a little smarter. Well, I hate to say it that way. We did a little bit more scouting with our maps to make sure that we didn't run into stuff prior to tournament. So when it was game time, we didn't have any oops, but we had a close one time or two. I'm not gonna lie. So,
and it's not, if people are scared of it, to be honest with you, it's not that bad of water. It's just, I'd say it's not forgiving. It's not Lake Oahe forgiving. Like if you miss something by a few feet, you're in trouble, And I think that's why people are scared of it. We got the Sharp Showdown. People are like, I don't even want to come there because it's scary. And I'm like, it's not scary, guys. Read a map, drive your boats.
It's one of those deals of, if you have, everybody's got Lake Master, or everybody's got 5 different ones they use on their phones, apps, etc. And just go the day before the tournament and kind of map out where you're going to run. Where's your place you're going to go full tilt? Where's your places you can't? And then you just save the track of the areas. Okay, we can run full tilt through this area. Save it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that hard. And it's
do you really have to run full tilt all the time though?
Yes, in a tournament. No.
Okay. Going off. It's really necessary.
Yeah, there's nothing better than hearing that gas gauge go ow, 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 ow when it's, throwing the rooster tail and scooting. But, you don't have to. But a lot of times if you're trying to skim shallow water, that's what you really do. You need to be full tilt, trimmed up, tabs. I mean, because when you're on plane and you're full tilt, that's less, that prop is down, the transom's down deeper. So you can get on top of that water and get that motor up out of the water a little bit. You can skim a little bit skinnier water.
And you're not a 350 or a 400 guy either. You were running a 200. What's the new boat like, and how's that powered?
So it's going to be a 300 on the new boat. Still, I think here in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be driving down to pick it up and be doing the unveiling of what I'm going to be running this year. Super pumped about it. Been doing really good about keeping tight-lipped about it. I've been wanting to tell people, but I'm like, no, I'm just going to wait and do a video when we get it and go over everything. So,
don't you love how digital stuff kind of gets in the way of fun? Like, no, we can't just go fishing now. Hold on, we got to get a picture of that.
Yeah,
or you can't even be excited about a new boat because you got to do some fancy unveiling thing, and it makes it fun. It is what it is, and it is what you make of it. But the crazy thing is, for the little I've known you, I feel like I've known you forever. I was telling Drake Hurd last week and Kurt that it's, like we were high school classmates or something. I'm a lot older than you. I flunked a few times. And that's the crazy thing. And every time I've been around you, you've been a pile of fun, even if we're up till 2 a.m.
Yeah. When I hung out with Kurt, that's one of the things that, besides the fishing, aspect of tournaments, it's, I think a lot of people don't understand we're just a group of guys that love the outdoors. I don't think that gets talked about as much as it should. And I know Kurt and I have had conversations about it too, that, you can sit and have a drink and BS and tell stories about this lake and that lake of this year or whatever. And then in the morning when you launch your boat, hey, morning, you give a little head nod and that's it. Like 6 hours ago, you were pouring them a drink, we're all outdoorsmen, outdoorsmen and women, I don't want to select any because, it is nice. We're starting to see some female competitors, and the ones that are out there in the circuit, a lot of times are pretty fierce. So at the end of the day, though, we all got the same goal: be outside, be in the outdoors. So
I've hung out with you at a number of shows, and then we decide to come up north and do a little bit of fishing, and you and Grant were there. We stopped in at Dakota Lakes Lodge and Bait, where you kind of hang out and call winter home for at least 60 to maybe 90 days, maybe not so much, maybe 45 this year. But we got there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and 12 hours later, we called it a day, but we were having a blast time, Mike.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was, my friend Chad was with, Grant was another bonus guy there, and it was just a ton of fun. And how many times do you go somewhere with somebody you kind of know, but really don't know all that well, and you pick up where you left off, and it's just a ton of fun.
Yeah, it's, and I look forward to the tournament season because I have so many tournament family. Sure. There's guys that I don't see until it's tournament time, and I enjoy the camaraderie of those guys. It's, I don't know. I think at times people they think we're so cutthroat.
Right.
It's serious, but that same notion, when you see so-and-so or whoever, you just, give them a high five or smack them on the back and say, hey, that was a nice, I can poke the bear a little bit on this one. I watched Drake Hurd lose his temper and break a rod over his knee. And every time I see him, I bring it up and remind him because, it's that little poke the bear deal. It's fun. We all give each other, static, and it's all out of good fun. Cause at the end of the day, it's serious and we all are real serious about it when it's game time. But, if you don't enjoy the others that are around you and just hear some of the stories, there's a lot of memories, a lot of history that has evolved from tournament fishing that I think a lot of people do forget.
So with that, speaking of memories, some people on night might not know who you are or just starting to hear about you. Who is Tom Sieburg? Where did he come from? And how did you get to being the world walleye champion? I mean, let's hear some backstory, because a couple of years ago I was just starting to hear your name and I'm like, okay, who's Tom? Who's this Tom guy?
Yeah. So
here we are tonight.
Yeah. So my family owned a cabin in Bemidji, Minnesota for 40 years. And we used to go up for almost the whole summer in Bemidji and just kind of hang out. And, some people would be surprised. I bass fished pretty hard, from time probably, I don't know, 16 to probably 20 years old. Just because in Minnesota, the bass were untouched, and my dad walleye fished, he had the cigar box that was the whole walleye tackle arsenal, of crawler harnesses, and harnesses. That was that kind of deal.
Gold hammer spinner, an orange one, a black and the yellow one.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't, you had 6 colors, and it was, you always had gold and you always had black and you always had white, you never left without those things. And then, as I got older, I kind of started doing some guiding and kind of dealing with that kind of part-time and helping some people out, work for some lodges. I trained bird dogs professionally for 10 years. Worked for Amoco Oil. I mean, I got a pretty good extensive background in the guiding industry. And I met my wife, Carmen, and I started taking her brothers fishing. And the joke because everybody asked me how to come up with tom-toms. And so my father-in-law, his name was Tom. So I'd take my brother-in-laws and stuff out fishing, and they would show pictures of all these fish they were getting. And they grew up and their fishing was farm ponds, bullheads, bluegills, And they're like, man, you must have had a guide. And you're like, oh yeah, Tom took us, so it was, in reference, they kind of were poking fun of the Garmin unit back in the day. Cause anywhere you wanted to go somewhere, you just Tom took you. Yeah. So that was kind of the start of it. And then, it honestly, almost 4 years ago, my wife, one day I came home from my full-time job and she says, you need to quit your job and do the guiding full-time. And I just remember looking at her like, are you sure? Like, this is and for me, where I live, I'm down by Omaha, Nebraska. People may not, there's a lot of people that don't know. I travel and guide on a large radius of bodies of water throughout the Midwest. Webster, Chamberlain, Oahe, Francis Case, McConaughey, Sherman, Harlan County Reservoir. I've done guide trips on Okoboji. So I put on 30-some thousand miles a year on my truck. I don't have per se a home body of water. I actually kind of like the fact I don't have a home body of water because I get to kind of cherry pick where the good bites are happening for those lakes. And I think it always kind of keeps me a little bit more on edge because I don't get in that rhythm of, I'm going to go to waypoint, 6 because I know they're always there off of this reef or whatever. Things change, a little bit every year from time throughout the year. So, but no, it's kind of, I do a lot of sport shows for different outdoor companies, especially through the winter time, ice fishing shows, meet a lot of great people. And then good friend of mine, Curtis McCormick, who I won the world championship with, we were talking one day out at McConaughey and we're like, we should do the MWC. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So we fished 4 events, and Cass Lake was our last one, and we had fun. I mean, that was the thing with Curtis and I. Even though if we didn't do really well, we always seemed to find the bigger walleye, but just couldn't get our unders or couldn't make the whole package. And we had a good time. We never really kind of, I wouldn't say care, but we didn't get bent out of shape because we all know it's fishing. And, as long as we tried what we needed to do and didn't miss a fish, whether at the net or on a hook set, we kind of felt pretty good about it. And we got home, and like 2 weeks later, we had emails, text messages, phone calls. Congratulations, you guys made it to the championship for your first time trying. And I called Curtis and I was like, hey, am I reading this right on here? Did we really qualify for this? And he's like, no way. So he looked up and we're like, we did. We qualified in this for doing 4. We're like, sweet, now what? He's like, it's on Lake Sharp. And I go, well, that's good because I've never fished it. He starts laughing. That's good. And I said, well, I suppose if neither of us have fished it, we don't have any bad habits on the lake. So we can dissect the lake fresh instead of saying, 5 years ago we've caught fish here. And I think sometimes we all do this, not just tournament fishermen. We all have a lake that we go to and we're like, when Grant and Steve and I were ice fishing or fishing here, we caught them over on this point and this depth. And what are you going to do? We all say we're not going to do it, but we'll get in the boat and we'll go right to that same spot.
Fish memories.
Yep. And it's, so I think at times that's where, that helps not having some of those for tournament time. It's like, yeah, okay, so you just break down the whole body of water, you know. But we really, you know, the one interview, somebody's like, you really didn't. I'm like, no, we just kind of fished it. Like we didn't have a bunch of history to the lake. I think that's kind of what made it, you know, even more special for us. We were sitting in 15th on day one, come back day two, sitting in the lead. Day three, we had one over and not our second over, and we were going in. And I remember looking at Curtis and I go, we got it. And he goes, what? And I go, I just got that feeling that we got it. And then we get to we're weighing in, and lo and behold, my wife didn't tell me. She came up, surprised me with her and the kids there for the weigh-in. So like I've told people, regardless of whatever happens, I had my three kids, Jake, Jaden, Jocelyn, were on stage with me and Curtis had his kids on stage. That'll be one that we will, it don't matter the money or whatever happens. That win will be impossible to ever beat, because we had our kids on stage with us, and his kids and my kids are about the same. They love fishing. So for our kids to be a part of that is really cool.
Well, and Jake is a pretty impressive kid. Is he 11 or 12?
12.
12. So he's 12, and you're obviously grooming him, or he's groomed you, because I understand he's an excellent fisherman, and I know the kid can give a seminar.
Yeah.
I saw him at Sioux Falls with the JT booth, and he commanded a crowd. It was impressive.
Yeah, he's a mini me. And it's bad to say, but there's some things that he definitely surpasses me on. Like, and it's, you love seeing that as a dad, you know, and especially being in this industry / outdoors. It's just the amount of information that is there for people nowadays on social media, YouTube, write-ups, articles, everything's on your phone. You know, it's amazing. And you know, there's so many people that I think discredit that you can get a ton of information with not even touching the water, just by doing some research.
You used to get more when Walleye Central was at its peak. You could learn a lot about a lake. I don't care where you were going. If you're going Lake of the Woods or Rainy or Big Mac or wherever, Oahe, there was always somebody spilling their guts on what worked the best, and you got great information there. You still get it now, but you get your keyboard warriors that are, you know, where'd you catch them in the mouth? You know, where'd you hook? Whatever, you know. You know, but you brought up technology for the most part. So I'm going to throw this out there right now, you know, because of the whole Wisconsin thing. And then the thing that drove me nuts this entire week, over the weekend and the week, is the young and old, you know, and it's the old guys bitching because the new guys are using the technology. And my thought was, well, being old is a piss poor excuse for not winning, you know? So I'm like, come on, seriously, embrace it or not. Because I would guess that Trey McKinney probably bought his Garmin or his live sonar a year after I did. And he's a heck of a lot better at it than I am. I mean, whatever, you know, if you don't use the technology, if you don't let it teach you, you know, where you at? I would guess you guys, you use it, don't you?
Yeah. And
Zach,
I think it's kind of a scapegoat. And reason why I call it that is I think it's because people say, well, it's because we don't, you know, I remember 10 years ago we fished this lake and in 10 minutes we could have our limits and then and this, that, and it's this forward facing sonar. I'm here to tell you, I can look at a fish and I can throw a jig at it, a minnow at it, a leech at it, a slip bobber at it. And if he ain't going to eat, he ain't going to eat. And we've all seen that. And there's got to be more. I think until there's conversations about people knowing that if they haven't ate the fish that's in the freezer from last year, they probably shouldn't keep fish this year.
Bingo.
I know there's a lot of people that don't really touch on that, Yeah, but that's, and here's the deal. I'm 47 years old. I know, I can tell you stories when it was 50 perch in Minnesota, and we used to get our limit of 50s, by noon. And it was we didn't even try. And these were 10 to 12 inch perch,
I think that needs to be the new Between Hook Sets motto is limits don't matter.
Yeah. Right.
You don't need that limit. And I think that's the biggest thing we have in the world right now is everybody thinks they need that limit and that glory photo.
Yeah. And it's driven. It's almost to the point, if you're not posting photos as a influencer, a pro staffer, whatever somebody wants to call it nowadays, if you don't have that banner fish where your hands are here, then it's not worth it. And I think we kind of at times overlook, just like when you guys come up and ice fish with me, you and Chad, Grant and I we caught numerous fish. Yeah. And we caught them. Half of them we didn't even show you guys or me. We just threw back the hole. We're like, man, this is a fun time, and hey, how's you guys doing? Oh, here, try this, try that. Like, I think until some people really look hard in the mirror and be honest, that they're just going to keep pointing the finger at forward facing sonar. Because I remember when Humminbird came out with the fish ID and it was a red dot on the screen, that it was a year or two later, guys were complaining at a tournament up on Lake Bemidji that it's the reason why so many people caught so many walleye was because of this new fish ID. And before that we had flashers, and before, then we had the paper graphs. It's like and there's always that excuse. And until we have the serious conversations and people start realizing, if you have fish in your freezer and you didn't eat it, why is there fish in your live well or on the cutting table now in front of you?
Yeah, exactly. Or catch and release. I don't have any fish in my freezer, and I never do.
Yeah.
Or like our good buddy Pat Calmerton told me one time, I only catch what I can eat that night. That way I have the excuse to the wife that I got to go out and fish again tomorrow.
Right. Yep. Tom, take a look at the, think about the picture that we took when we were up fishing with you guys. The four of us took a picture of us. We weren't holding any fish. There were fish laying on the ice, but not one time did any of us look and go, oh, we better get fish and hold on to them. It was all about the four of us up there having a good time and making sure that everybody knew that we were on a lake in the middle of Minneapolis somewhere.
Yeah, correct. Because this winter, everybody knows, especially in the Webster area, it was not the best ice conditions. So everybody kind of tried to keep in hush. But one thing I'll point out, you said something about the four of us in a picture. Unfortunately, Grant and I were targeted on a picture that we put. Yeah, a picture that we posted, and we had 8 people that day guiding, and so we had almost probably a 5-man limit of panfish and a 4-man limit of walleye on the table, not a full 8 for them. And Grant and I took a photo with it with thumbs up and tagged it on our social media of a great day guiding. And it was used and said, this is the reason why our lakes are deplenished. And what, it stems back to people thinking these guides are what's taking all the fish out of the lake. If you think of how many people we go through in a season and the fish we pull out and actually get the knife versus the fish that are taken out of that lake for the whole year by
the locals,
doesn't put a dent in it, because the money that is brought back into the community through those people that are mostly non-resident, not locals, should be paying. That helps subsidize some of that anyway, or at least it should be. And we all know that's a whole new ball of wax. I'm not going to get all into that, but and that's one thing I try to tell people: conservation, and the best part for me is education, and I'm in people's memories. And that is something that I think it drives me more than anything. Is I'm in people's memories that I've met once and I'll never see them again. Yet I'm in a picture with them and they're going to show people for on and on and on and on and talk about it. And that is something that's so rewarding that I'll make the pun joke. I'm retired and I'm fishing. That's what my brother-in-law has said. You're retired and fishing. Yeah, well, come work for me for a couple weeks. It's not all fun and games at times, but it takes a certain person, but it's a great life, and we meet so many great people. I've met you guys through the industry, and I meet so many people through industry, and it's a lot of times we just got to remember that at the end of the day, it's conservation is key.
Yeah, it really is. And Brian Brosdahl said it best in an episode that he did for me a year and a half, 2 years ago. He said, these people go out and fish. It's not like somebody shows up and restocks the lake the next day for you. It takes a while for lakes to rebound. So I know that because of social media and because of friends and because of cell phones and because of the different technology and everything that we've got, that we're probably fishing lakes harder than we were. COVID may be to blame too, if you want to point the finger and blame it at someone, because people learn to go out and do something outdoors and fish. So it all does come down to people. I've said it a million times. Live sonar doesn't catch fish. Live sonar doesn't kill fish. It doesn't fillet fish. It doesn't eat fish. But people,
I don't know. Have you seen some of them trolling motors on the Bassmaster guys' boats? I'm pretty positive if all them beams go off at one time and a fish comes under there, it will come up deep fried for you.
That's really good.
That's the next stage. It's called the find it and cook it 2.0.
You get the 360 beam and the two forward facings all go off at the same time. That thing's coming up deep fried.
Well, he's probably glowing when they get him actually in the live well and you shut the lid. There's a little bit of glow in there.
I just didn't think about that. 83 kilohertz, 200 kilohertz, 455, 800, 1.2 megs, and the list goes on and on and on. And who knows where it's going to end? I think, isn't it Garmin that's got some new fancy thing coming out that's going to make LiveScope kind of look silly?
There's always somebody that's got something that's, I hate to be, always the one that's, I kind of laugh every time I see a post on forward facing and this, that, and the other. Cause I just think it's the new scapegoat. And I know I'll get comments about it, but from what I see, from where I'm, and that's the thing, I'm in Nebraska and a lot of people are like, oh, it's Nebraska. No, what we have walleye down here. We just don't have the sheer numbers.
Right.
And we get guys that are putting excess pressure on bodies of water. And it's not from LiveScope. It's from fishing from shore spring and fall. Mm-hmm. And they're the same ones that are posting pictures every night during the spring and fall with limits.
Yeah, right.
That has nothing to do with forward facing sonar.
No. Nope.
So I can argue that with anybody, that I can pull up, person X and show 6 nights of fish, these walleye in a bucket. Well, he can say he put them back, but once they're in the bucket, they're your possession.
Yeah, so, right. Oh, so true.
He must be eating fish every night. And if that's what he wants to do, that's fine. But these are guys that are fishing from shore.
Yeah.
And I say it all the time. If we want to stop technology with forward facing sonar, we should have started with flashers. When the Vexlar came out, it changed ice fishing.
Oh, 100%.
Spot lock, GPS maps, like that all changed it. So, I mean, why all of a sudden it's a new scapegoat, right? It's a new scapegoat.
Yeah. And it's, it's just a shame because the biggest thing that it's taught me, and Jake has even said that, Dad, I didn't realize that, and I'm not going to say which fish they were, but these fish and those fish were in the same spots together. I would have never known that. It's taught us more on fish behavior and different species, how they intermix together and swim in different vegetation than anything. I guarantee you.
Think about how it's taught us how walleyes are suspended 2 foot below the water column in 60 foot of water.
Yeah.
You know, who would ever thought we were fishing walleyes 2 foot below the water? You know, like, you didn't do those things, right? Like, that's not something we ever did.
No.
Yeah, there's so much cool stuff. This spring, I've been using my Garmin at a culvert.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy to watch the fish and how they maneuver in and out of the mouth of the culvert and then make their way through. Walleye guys are I agree. Yeah, walleye guys are pretty doggone secretive. There's no doubt about it. But then again, maybe that's kind of the fun of it too. Bass guys, let's give the bass guys a pat on the back. You know, like take for instance Grant, and you're an exception to the walleye guy rule. And maybe you won't tell everybody the secrets and all the fun stuff, but the times that I've been around Grant and how helpful he's been to friends of mine, Aaron and Rylan and other people, they're very, very giving and very instructional. They're very friendly. And I think walleye guys are that way too. I think the walleye guys kind of get a bad rap because more people see them at tournament time and you guys are focused. It's like, hey, you know, we're working, we're busy. We can't talk. So yeah, it is what it is, but
yeah, it's, you know, I always make the joke that I'll give a tip, but it's a tip. It's not the whole recipe, you know, because that's part of it, you know. You don't get the gratification to hold up that fish, whatever size it may be, because someone held your hand and hooked it, and then they hand it to you and you reel it in. You know, it's the whole journey to that moment that makes that fish worthwhile. And you know, for people to, if they forgot about that, they got to see a kid that's never caught a fish before to see what he looks like when he sets the hook and reels it in, and it is a bluegill, and it's 7 inches, 6-7 inch bluegill, and he is static. You know,
did you ever see Troy Peterson's kid? Was it last year? He had a video of his boy, Mr. Bluegill's son, caught one, and he just absolutely went bat crap crazy, and it was the most fun thing I've seen in forever. Sean Grams, how you doing, Sean?
What's up, buddy? Yeah,
you know, the old bluegill's the gateway drug. My wife never fished. I took her bluegill fishing. The next day she's at work sending me pictures of stuff she need to own.
Yeah. Well, you know, the crazy thing is I've caught not 20-inch bass, and they fight. You know, they're those 4 or 5 pound fish fight, and it's a ton of fun. But I was on Stone 2 years ago and caught 10.5 and 11-inch bluegill that I'd never caught in my life. And I thought I had the biggest bass on. They fight. They're fun. I get it. It's addicting.
Yeah. And it's all in retrospect, you know, like one of my, it's probably not well known with me, is I love catching muskie, you know. I don't do a huge time of it. I have no desire to do tournaments because it's just not something that I enjoy. Taking people that's never seen one or experienced fishing for them, and not so much guiding, just friends or family members taking them out, because there's such a dinosaur, elusive mammoth fish that, you know, 36, 38 inch, you know, muskie, you know, is not huge, but for 90% of the population, when they hook into that and they hold it, they're shaking, you know. So it's, you know, I think as time progresses, I think everybody's going to see a lot of things change and focus, you know, from the forward facing to limits, you know, to hopefully South Dakota gets where there's a guide license. I know Kurt, me and you've talked about that before. Anybody that knows me personally knows that I am an advocate for it. And there's a lot of people that shake their head and like, really? I'm like, yes, because we're, you know, there's things that need to evolve and you either can evolve with them and be one of the ones that are help promoting that for the growth, because at the end of the day, it's going to be better for my kids, my grandkids. I got 3 grandkids that, I want them to go fish Webster, different lakes up there in Minnesota, wherever. I want them to, when I'm gone, I want them to go with their family and their kids and be able to experience what I've done in my lifetime. And I think, I hope more people start understanding that it's things are evolving, and you either need to get on times with it or you're going to get left behind with it, and promote it and be a component to make the improvement or to let it go.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like the old guys that are complaining right now, get over it. Go get it, try it, learn from it, and move on. And go win a tournament and prove that you're an old guy that can still catch fish.
Yep.
Whatever.
Or
win the tournament without it.
Said, I would like to see some of these new school guys go out and do what old Senior and them guys did with a flasher too. That being said, I would like that. I'd love to see a tournament. We always had a dream of doing a tournament and doing like the first day, all the technology is game, everything is game. Next day, you're in a 16-foot tiller with a flasher.
Yep. Yeah. And there would be, and we all know there would be some people without forward facing or without different technology, they'd be done. Like, I don't know if they, and I'm not trying to say that I would hope, because I remember growing up and fishing those ways, that I think you'd see me throw buoys out, which a lot of people don't even know what that motion's like when you're looking at the flasher and you throw a buoy over your shoulder.
Ilex bottle.
Yeah. But, I think you may be onto something. I think that'd be kind of a cool,
fun,
called a retro tournament, to where you can't, for whatever, and have a proceed for a benefit for a boys club or whatever, have guys that get together and do a retro tournament to where, okay, you disconnect all your stuff, you pull your fuses, put a zip tie on it so it can't be reattached. The only thing you can have is your cell phone for a map, because it'd be hard to eliminate that. You at least have to have that deal, but even then there's going to be guys with a map. We all know how maps are, they're only as good as the water level of the lake is. So it could be an interesting feature.
I used to go fishing with Senior when he was alive and up here, and we'd go out in the boat and he wouldn't even let you turn the graph on. And he'd go over there and we'd haul over there. And before we were off plane, he was casting and had a fish caught. He didn't need that graph. He went out there and fished. It was the things I seen that man do. One day I stopped in Chamberlain. My buddy was fishing on the rocks. We're coming back from a tournament. We pulled up. I said, Senior, just stay in the truck. I'm going to go down there for a little bit. Nope. Senior crawls down the rocks with me. My buddy's got a crappie rig out and he's casting a minnow, a jig and a minnow. Senior grabbed that. They hadn't caught a thing. Senior grabbed the crappie rig, cast it out, jigged it in. About 5 times, it's a ball like this, like hook sticking out, and he catches a fish. He goes, that's what you got to do, guys. And I'm like, how did he even bite it? It's just a ball of string. But that was Senior, so we didn't get to where we are without that, right? We didn't get to where we are without, the tournament industry, the guide industry. We'd still be in 16-foot boats. We wouldn't be looking at $150,000 boats and $50,000 with electronics on them if it wasn't for the tournament industry, or the guide industry, or the want of this, guys. To go out and want to, we go back to the technologies wrecking our industry, or the more people out is wrecking it, or the limits. At the end of the day, the more people we see on a lake, we're promoting what we love.
Yeah.
Right. We're getting out people where we love and what we love. And it's, like I said, it goes back to teaching them responsibility, and a limit doesn't mean everything, and it goes back to us working with our game fishing parks to make sure they're stocking ponds and managing places right and limits right and all these things, and be a steward of the land, and also help in the conservation of the land with game fishing parks, and, push them in the right direction. And, they're not always going to do what we want them to do. If we work together, we can get somewhere.
Yep. Well, and we had an incident on a couple bodies of water this winter. They were doing those curl surveys where they wanted to measure the fish we had. And it was amazing, to me, how many people were almost rude to them. Like they didn't have, like they were bothered by them wanting to measure each fish. And, the 2 days that I was stopped, I was guiding, I had some buckets and he's like, yeah, well, we ain't going to hold you up. We'll just measure a few. And I'm like, take your time, dump both buckets out, measure each fish. Like if it's going to help you on your numbers and help figuring out this body of water better, I'll send my clients on and they can meet up with me and you take your time. And if you want to take scales off, I don't care. Like, I think, you touched it, and I know we all have. This doesn't happen to fix what people is seeing as a problem or to help improve. Does not going to be fixed by us sitting talking here, and then once it comes time out in the field to just not do anything.
Right.
Not take the time or not. And I don't mean to be a tattletale, but I've had some problems in my local bodies of water where I'm seeing some people take buckets of fish and it's a lake to where they got to be a certain size. And I can know that they're not a certain size. I call game parks. Hey, listen, they're in this truck. They're in this vehicle. It's the second bucket they've taken today between the 5 of them. You need to send somebody down here.
Those people need to be stopped.
Yep. And somebody's like, well, and I go, to rewind on that back further, fast forward that same group of people 3 weeks prior, I walked down and talked to them. And they acted like I had no right whatsoever to even say anything or to try to educate. And, I would rather try to educate somebody before I call because some people may not know. But, we have to start holding each other accountable.
Yeah.
Just like Kurt, we've talked about, it's been brought up in the tournament world about not having your vest on when you're on full plane. It's a rule violation. Well, do you really DQ them for that? Yes.
Yeah. It's a rule violation.
People will be like, why? And I'm like, it's a rule.
Yep.
A rule's a rule. And today's society has unfortunately, it's like it's that little slip. It's not so big. It's not so big. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. It turns into, I think, where we are today, especially where it comes to the populations of fish, because we know we've all seen somebody or a business or a guide or somebody that was doing something wrong and we didn't call on it because we didn't want to be that guy. And we all need to start being that guy. And I know that's a hard pill to swallow, but we got to start somewhere, folks.
Right.
I mean, we do.
Yeah. Well, you think about it. You look at, and I'm not going to say names. I'm just going to say, look at at least one of the guys that stuck weights down a fish's throat, to win a tournament. Yeah. Well, you get a look at their history and their rap sheet, and it's just one thing after another, after another, after another. And it's just breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law, or doing things wrong, doing things wrong, doing things wrong. And it just continues to pile up one after another. There's a bunch of guys I know out at the river. I've got 80 to 100 fish in my freezer. I'm taking all to Arizona. Well, great. I should really call you in. I really should. And the other thing that drives me nuts too is the people who get mad because you tattled on them. Well, you shouldn't have broke the law then. It's that simple. You shouldn't have done it. You should live right, do it right. And if you get told on, tattled on, whatever, well, that's on you, not on anybody else. Yeah. We all own the water. If you want to get, because there are all those people, I pay your taxes, so, or I pay your salary because I pay taxes. Okay, well then, so we all own the lake. And hey, Kent, we all own the lake, so it's all on us to tell people, hey, look, you did that wrong. Tom, there's a question, I guess.
Yeah, and the thing that I think a lot of walleye guys overlook is bait. And what everybody's like, oh, bait, they think minnows. I I was taught a long time ago to scoop up some mud with a little minnow scoop on the shoreline and see what kind of insects are starting to try to burrow or hatch. And then that's a good indication on what bug hatch, what microorganism is going on in that area, that body of water. Everything is an ecosystem, and you're not going to have minnows in an area without the insects. And I tend to see bigger walleye are eating fish that people don't believe are bait fish. You take a 28 to a 31-inch walleye and he's eating 12 to 13-inch walleye. He's eating 9-inch drum. He's eating, 12-inch crappie. And people are like 12. I've seen some big walleye eat some big fish. Why I bring up the microorganisms, because those fish, depending on their growth stage and what they're feeding on, all depend on that stuff. And once you start understanding where some of these fish, like your little walleye are always, if you catch, sometime if you find a pot of little 12, 13-inch walleye, stay on them and you'd be surprised how many big 10, 11-inch perch you'll catch. It's crazy because they're eating a bug. Those walleye will eat some minnows, but their main forage is not minnows yet. I think guys are starting to see from forward-facing sonar that just how big of a bait, when you're using to catch the bigger walleyes, we need to be using.
Yeah.
And I think they're starting to realize that where they were seeing a bait ball, and that bait ball, you can tell that they're maybe 3-4-inch shiners, shad, LY, etc. That used to be we're going to fish here. There's an arch there. That's a big walleye. No, that's a smaller walleye. We need to find, the herring that's, 14, 16 inches long, on a wahi. That's when you start finding those bigger herring, that's where you want to be, is those bigger bait fish, not the smaller ones, and it isn't just, like a wahi, McConaughey, all these bodies of water, they're all, those trophy size walleye are all targeting way bigger food than what we first think about. And so I think if you just see at what size of bait fish there is in that area, is going to greatly improve your chance of catching that trophy fish, because you'll start finding out that, the bait's not as big as I thought. Live scope works great, but you can take a little wet fly and put a chunk of night crawler on it with 5 split shots 3 feet up above and drop it in the bait ball and see what eats it. And if you catch it and you reel it up and it's a 6-inch shiner, that's probably not what they're feeding on.
Yep.
So it's fishing,
Yep. It's interesting. I've got a little spot where I go where there are a ton of 10 and 12-inch walleye. And I keep going back to that spot because I know there are going to be bigger walleye trolling through there. I went there last night and I learned a really big lesson. So the first hook that I put a minnow on a hook and I hooked it right behind the dorsal and I chucked it out. And I started casting and I went, bobber down. I went and grabbed it and I gave it a set. I'm like, crap, I missed it. So I brought it back in, and for some reason I decided to hook the minnow by the tail. And I was using bigger minnows, 2.5, 3 inches. So they were fighters. They were pretty doggone lively. And I never got another bite. I went, well, the bite's done. It's over. So half an hour later, I reel it in, and the lake that I'm on is up maybe 18 inches, 2 feet. And I just stopped and let the bobber float, because I thought, it looks like my bobber's maybe got water in it. It's sinking a little bit. Lighted bobber, they don't really float that well anyway. And I saw my minnow swimming up to the surface, and it kept swimming. And every time I'm like, what the hell? I screwed myself. So I grabbed another minnow, hooked it through the head, right down to the bottom. So here, the whole time I'd hooked that minnow in the side, and it probably was down a few inches above the bottom. And here I was hooking in the tail, thinking I was being cute and was really going to catch a nice big walleye. And here I was at the top of the water column, and I totally boffed it. But it was a great learning experience.
So we got a couple more questions. This one came in earlier. Steve was wondering if you're fishing the full PWT. I'm guessing MWC is what he meant.
Yeah.
MWT.
Yeah. So I'm not going to fish Huron or Erie as of today. As of today, David and I have not signed up and paid entry for those two. They're not out of the question yet, but those two are ones that we are not committed on. And it has nothing, I had somebody.
We have another.
It just really has to go for the fact of the logistics of getting there during that time of year.
Ken asks again, you think this information can go for ice fishing big walleyes also?
Big walleyes through the ice, I think a lot of people are in too deep of water. If I was to target trophy size only walleye, I think I would be in a lot shallower water than where 90% of the people fish for them are.
I agree.
I think it's part of that's to do with the alpha predator piece, and what they're feeding on during the winter.
Makes sense. When we were in Winnipeg, and Kent likes to fish Winnipeg a lot. I think, Kent, you said you had 50 days up there. When we were up there, Jason Durham and those guys were up there. They were fishing shallow. We were fishing deeper, and we were 11 to 16 feet, but they were in 4 to 8 feet. And that's where the big walleye were. So I think we do take shallow water for granted, no matter what, at all periods throughout the year.
I know, if you want to come back to Sharp, I think she's hinting at the Sharp Showdown.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I am not to the point where I can fish as many tournaments as I would like to, because my living is guiding. That's how I pay my bills. Maybe as time goes on, maybe I can get more sponsors money to fish more tournaments. And I would like to fish that. I mean, I don't have a problem fishing that body of water again. I think there's a lot of, I was told that that's the nursery, because of the size of fish that are in it. And I really think that that's not the case. I think there's probably some nicer fish in there than what people give it credit for.
I've seen some really nice fish come out of Sharp. I would say it's a pretty fast growing. It grows them to 15, 16, 17 inches pretty dang quick. And you look at West Bend. West Bend never shuts down. They ice fish it, they spring fish it, they fall fish it, they summer fish it. It absolutely produces fish year in and year out, year round. And so, but I definitely know there are some bigger fish caught. It's not like a wahi where you're probably going to have a better odds of catching one, but I think you're right. I definitely know you're right. There's more bigger fish in there than people give it credit for.
Yep.
So let's just give this a quick second here, because I saw this. Actually, Target Walleye came out with their email today, and I caught this just before Brett released his. But catch and release only on Mille Lacs. That's got some people up in arms there. They're a little ticked off, I think.
Yeah.
Silence. There we go.
Yeah.
Crickets.
It kind of makes me sad. I remember when I was, and I hate to be the guy. It's my age, I guess. But I remember 10, 11 years old, we would go and get our limit. My dad, my mom, my sister, and I, in a 16-foot aluminum with a 9.9 on it. We didn't go very far offshore. Let me tell you, it's probably the right thing based on what their numbers are. I guess that's not, I guess I'm more speechless because that's a lot of money that's going to leave that lake. As far as the guides and resorts is to the point that I probably go, ooh, more than anything.
That makes sense. I'm thinking, I'll still wish to fish it. I don't know that I will. I haven't done it for years, but I catch and release anyway, so it doesn't matter to me. But you hit the nail on the head there. Guiding and probably some tourism too, because people do like to keep fish. I'm not gonna hold that against anybody. That's fantastic.
So we're getting towards the end of the hour. What is your favorite body of water to fish?
I have really, really started to love-hate Cass Lake more. And it for me, it's because I'm going to say Cass Lake, and here's the reason why: is we go there for family vacation for 2 weeks, and now this is the second year where there's friends of ours. They're coming up now with their sons, and I was teaching them last year how to fillet fish, and they haven't been around it. Their dad's really starting to pick up on how to fish. So I'm going to say it's that, just for the memories and how that's building. And the fact that, you can catch perch, crappie, muskie, pike. You can go into Wolf Lake and get bluegill. You can, the chain of lakes off of Cass is unbelievable. And it's a very unique body of water. You can almost name how you want to catch a walleye, and you can probably catch them that way if you wanted to.
That's awesome.
So go ahead.
And if I had to have a default, I would say McConaughey spinnerbait walleye.
Well, let's see. Before we go, real quick, you also hunt, and you had a chance to take a big hunt, and you got red stag and an elk. Tell us about that quick.
Yeah, so I was very, very fortunate enough to have a wife that for some reason supports my crazy addiction. And for a 40th birthday present, we went to New Zealand, and I shot a red stag with a bow and an elk with a bow. And then she got to harvest her first ever fallow deer with a rifle while we were there.
Awesome.
Unbelievable scenery. I got a few hunts that are in the memory banks that are top, and that one will be hard to top. For a bow hunter, that's, there's so many in, Fred Eichler and all these guys, in Easton Bow Hunting Magazine back in the day. Everybody talked about going and shooting a red stag in New Zealand as an archer, because that is just, once you get that is kind of the pinnacle of I literally came back and sold my bow a year later, and I don't bow hunt anymore.
Wow.
It's at the time, I think it was number 15 in the world. It's shoulder mount in my basement. I got a couple deer on the wall, but that hunt, and my wife was beside me on both of them. So
how big was it?
I don't remember the score. I can send you it's behemoth. There's plenty of pictures on my social media. It's huge. It's got dual drops like you'd see on a deer that are probably as big around as baseball bats. It is just a spectacular animal.
I was at the Denver Sports Show talking to the guy. He's like, "Yeah, we grow them over 1,200 inches, and from New Zealand." It was just like, whoa.
Yeah, it's crazy because I don't remember. It's not like my elk is a 3-something, which is a real nice elk, but my stag, it's the inches on how the total score is just ridiculous.
But when I looked at this guy's pictures and seeing this, this 1,200 inch. They're just junk everywhere. Yeah. It's not like a nice, cool rack. It's a cool rack, but it's not big. It's just junk everywhere.
Yeah, it's true. And that's where I have to laugh, because I had an option to shoot one that was bigger. If I would have waited, because we did see some bigger ones on the ranch later. But I really, with this having dual drops, being a deer hunter, Like that was when I seen it had dual drops. I'm like, oh, I gotta have that. And
awesome.
he was like, that's not gonna, like, he was almost kind of insulted that I wanted that one and not, to try to go after one that didn't have the dual drops, that was more of the red stag kind of rack build. And I'm like, nope, that's the one I want. So
that's awesome.
So
hey, we're at an hour.
Question before we go. How are you feeling about the 2025 World Walleye Championships on the Mahanadu chain? Alex.
Never been there, so I'm almost kind of excited for it.
It's been a long time since the big tournament's been up there, and it's going to be interesting. I fished that quite a bit. Got a bunch of friends from up in the Alex area, and got some friends that got cabins on the lakes, and I heard that announced. I called him, and he's like, when's the last time a big tournament's been here? And he goes, I can't tell you when, man, but it could be cool. That's a cool area.
Yeah, it's I know, like you said, I know quite a few people that do fish that and love that body of water. I personally have never fished it, which kind of makes me excited because it's a new body that I get to put on my list of lakes that I've fished. Hopefully, as long as I'm lucky enough to qualify again this year, David and I, we're going to give it a try, see if we can't qualify for the championship. But it'll be, I think, anytime there's a new body of water in the tournament world, I think is good for everybody.
Yeah, that one kind of threw a curveball when I saw that one announced.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. When I seen it, I kind of scratched my head and went, "How did that get there?"
And I bet you people had to Google, "What the heck is this?"
Right?
Yeah,
Greg Hurd.
Yep. Oh yeah. There was quite a few people that were like looking on their phone and expanding the map. Like, is there even a map chip for this lake? So it'll be interesting to see.
No doubt. Hey, Tom, it's been great having you. Thank you very much.
It's great seeing you guys like always again. And, hopefully we can always, all of us, keep trudging forward and help improving and keeping this great sport alive for kids and grandkids and doing our part. So I appreciate it.
No doubt. Appreciate you.
Hey, good luck this summer. Excited to follow along. Can't wait to talk to you later, bud.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me on.
Thank you much. Have a great night.
Oh, yeah, man.